Alright, so now that construction of the figure is pretty much completed, I still gotta cut out that little jacket, but that's a very minor part of the task. The last step is painting. This is actually one of the more time-consuming steps because you have to wait for paint to dry and all that. So, here are the kinds of paints that I use. The first paints I used were these. This is Anita's All-Purpose Craft Acrylic Paint. I like this because you can get it for $1 a tube at any store that sells local craft items. Mine is just like the local discount store. In fact, it doesn't even have a specific name. It's at $1 a tube. It's highly inexpensive. It's also paints pretty smooth and even textured. And it's easy to mix the colors together to make new colors. Like, if you need a slightly lighter shade of blue, you can just put a little bit of white paint with the blue paint, and there you go, lighter blue paint. It's very similar to this other paint, Americana. Yeah, Americana craft paint. It's the exact same kind of thing. It's acrylic craft paints. They're about $1.10 per tube, so it's marginally pricier. Although I think it's even slightly better in quality than the Anita's. Not really too big a difference. It's just I get these at Michael's, and they tend to have a broader palette. They also are compatible. You can mix the two paints together without affecting their texture, so they still work the same. These two paints have a common weakness, is that they were both designed to be used on paper and wood and stuff like that. So when you paint on a plastic action figure, after it dries, if you rubbed it too hard, you could scrape the paint off very easily. In fact, that's what this is for. This is a Krylon matte finish. It costs a few bucks at Michael's. Here's my Krylon matte finish. Let me reposition a light here so that I'm not backlighting myself every time I hold something up to the camera. There we go. Matte finish. Yes, by Krylon. I used to use sealant, but that was a little bit too gummy. It tended to apply itself too thickly, and it got sticky. But this stuff works a lot better. It's I'll show you guys how to spray this on after I paint a part. I'll show you exactly how it works. Let's see. There are two other paints I have here. One is the Testors. Testors acrylics. This is a paint intended for plastic models. So the bonus of this paint is that you can use it to paint an object made of plastic, like an action figure, and not have to worry about using the sealant spray. Weaknesses is that this paint is more expensive. Now, and you can't choose your colors with this kind of paint. Like, it's only available in these boxes that come with the colors on top. And I found two different kinds of boxes with different palettes. But yeah, if you just want to get some blue paint, you're gonna have to buy a box with all the colors in it, and that sucks. Cause Test Stores does sell single paints, but at any of the stores I find around here, all the single jars are purely the enamel paints, which enamel paints do not work for custom action figures. They're just not good for custom figures. So, yeah. Test Stores acrylics. They look good, well, except for the white and the yellow. Those colors are kind of really hard to work with, but for the most part, this paint looks good. It's designed to use on plastic, so it's great for action figures. Unfortunately, you have to buy complete box sets. And because they come in little glass jars instead of squeezable tubes, you can't mix colors together, which is unfortunate. Here's what the jars look like, by the way. They're much smaller jars than the Anitas or the Americanas. Tiny things. So yeah. There is... Oh, by the way, if you paint with the Testors, do not use finish on them. The finish has the opposite effect on Testors paints than it does on the Americana or the Anitas. It actually makes it run. So you do not want to use finish on Testors. If you have to use both Testors and another color, paint the one that uses the sealant first, then seal it, and then after that, then use this. Because you can paint this on top of dry sealant and it won't care. But if you paint this, and then you put sealant on it, it's not going to work. Even if it has ample time to dry, it's not going to work, trust me. There is one more paint. It's called Citadel paint. Citadel paint is really nice. It's kind of like the combination of the other two paints. It can totally be used to paint plastic objects like action figures, and it doesn't require a sealant, which is awesome. And it comes in these little plastic jars, and it's easier to get paint out of there to mix. Unfortunately, this is the only tube I have of Citadel paint. None of the stores in my city sell this stuff, like, at all. I actually had Andrew Strappers, the guy who did my opening animation. He made this. He sent this to me in the mail for me, and it's a really good paint. The problem is, it's just this one color, and it's this really dark brown, which I can't really use for much. And the thing is, you need to be able to buy your paints in person. The reason being that when I bought this when I had him send me the Citadel, I thought it was a much lighter shade. That's because when you look at a picture of a color on a screen, it's not really going to be the true color that it is. So that's my final piece of advice for this section. You gotta buy your paints in person so you can see exactly what the color is like, because you're not going to be able to tell. Alright, so I wish I could say I have an array of fancy paintbrushes, but the truth of the matter is I use this. It's just a little basic narrow-tipped paintbrush you can get at any 99-cent store. It's a cheap little paintbrush. I just use a little bit of... I just put it between my lips like that to make sure the tip is nice and pointy, so I can get in at fine details. You can let it splay out a little more when you're doing large patches, but like doing the insides of eyes and or stripes, you want to make sure that your tip is nice and pointy. This brush is a little soft. The bristles aren't super stiff. I wouldn't use super stiff bristles because they tend to apply scratchily. Of course, too soft and you won't be able to do details. I find a good compromise for a brush. The bristles have to be stiff enough to put details, but not so stiff that they scratch their own paint off. That's it. Okay, so with all of that said and done, let's paint Bunny up so that she will be pretty. So here are all the paints that go into the creation of Bunny. Yeah, you think the color scheme is pretty simple, but when you actually have to do it, you get all this. You may be wondering why there's gray there when I have silver right in front. That's because the silver paint doesn't really apply very well. It just makes things look a little shinier. It doesn't make them look silver. So you paint it gray, and then you put the silver paint on top of it, then it looks like it's actually made out of metal. Yeah, so all these colors go into making Bunny. How about that? Okay, here I am in the stairs, out in the hallway of my apartment building, because I don't do this part in my own house because this crap stains. Yes, I'm going to spray on the finishing spray now. This is a quick step. Here I have Bunny's arm. It's being held in a pair of Revoltech pliers, which I always use to paint and seal pieces so that they don't accidentally touch things while they dry. So you take the spray, and that's it.